Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. And Dad, we're going to start off with our foundational verse. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord, for he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Dad, that verse is important that we start off every single day because we got to anchor ourselves. We have to build a foundation of understanding that God created everything, everyone. He's in control. He has a plan. And sometimes those plans are painful. You know what I mean? And sometimes I do know that they're amazing. But God is a loving God, right? Even though you go through the dark times.
He very much is. And, you know, the interesting thing is some people say, well, I don't believe God because I don't see him. And, you know, all you have to do is look around to creation and you can see him all over the place.
Right.
But if you don't understand that, the interesting thing that the Bible teaches is that we love him even though we don't see him. And the beautiful thing is what we do know though is we hear from him. And we don't necessarily hear from these ears, but we hear from our spiritual ears.
Yeah.
If we just, you know, have that relationship that we talk about with the book that we've been giving away, if you have that relationship, you're going to hear, you've got to have a relationship with the Lord. Very, very important.
Yeah, you mentioned the book. Let's do it real quick. We're giving away a free booklet called The Living Stone, A Journey of Transformation. It's yours absolutely free. All you got to do is call and request it. You can go to our website too. If you're online, you can go to gotalktruth.com, click on resources and request it that way. Or you can call our toll-free number in Canada, 1-800-915-0056. You can ask them to send it to you and they will. This book is important, Dad, because it's strengthening that foundation of what the verse we talked about. You know what I mean? Understanding that God created all, that you're part of his creation, that he has a plan for your life. And, you know, it's important for us to remember that because there are times as humans, we will go through uncertainty. But there's one thing you can be certain about is that God is a loving God and he is in control of the situation, right?
Right. But the beautiful thing of going through the uncertainty, which maybe we might call trials or tribulations, the reason why that is there is to prove our faith, to demonstrate that we really do believe in God. Because, you know, you can believe in God, but what happens when the storms of life come along?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to our guest because the conversation we're having here at the beginning is very important as we go into our guest because she is phenomenal. We've had her before. We've got Kim Laureen on. She's a writer, director, a documentary filmmaker. There's nothing that she can't do. Her company's called Fresh Independence Productions, and she's highlighting a new film called Losing Coach Mac. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here again.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Now, I know you've done other films in the past, and I know that you were working with your daughter. Are you still doing that? Is it still a mother-daughter team?
Yes, 100%. Megan and I both work together. She does production duties. I do writing and directing, and together we make a great team.
Well, look at that. Dad, we're following in your footsteps, or you're following in ours. Father, son, mother, daughter. Look at that. We're changing the world. Let's get into the trailer of this new one so that we can really talk about this conversation. It's called Losing Coach Mac. Watch this.
What brings you joy in life?
People. I love people. It's a team thing. It's not a I. It's not a you. It's we.
The qualities that Bill MacGregor had, the number one quality would be integrity, caring for people deeply, and he modeled it.
Always loved every kid. He liked the ones that hung out at the smoke hole as much as he did the ones that were in the gym.
You had an impact on people that's lasted an entire lifetime. The way that you related to people, the way that you led, it's something I'll remember, and I'll try to emulate that as much as I can.
I always remember Dad saying, your talents are God's gift to you, and what you do with them are your gift back to him.
He would often say, anything worth doing is worth doing to the best of your ability. Show up at 100% and give your best. I think he knew that life can change at any moment.
How's my beautiful wife doing?
There are moments when he does understand, and it's very it's very hard on him to. He'll say to me, like, I don't understand why I can't remember. I get it. It's getting worse.
My dad went to football to try to get himself into a better place in his life, and then now he has very little memory left of who he was, and so that's very tough to watch.
Me and my teammates and my dad as well, when he played, like, we all know the risk, and there's a greater bond that's going on. That my dad's tough. It's part of the game.
There's visible and not so visible disabilities, and sometimes the ones that are less visible are the most devastating and challenging.
I only know one road, and I don't want to get off the one road.
I just don't see things, like fun things happening after this now. Like there's just, I don't know how to describe it, but I just don't really see a future for me. I just, because I'm losing him, right? Because he's going away.
Well, that's an incredible, touching story of Bill MacGregor, who British Columbia Football Hall of Fame inductee. He had a successful career in many different things. In 1973, he was part of the BC Lions draft pick. He was diagnosed with CTE and dementia. Tell us a little bit about Bill.
Well, it's just been an honor and a blessing to be called to this story. A little backstory is that I met his wife, Pam, when we were in high school. And then it was kind of, we were in and out of each other's lives. And then she does beautiful cookies, and I had placed an order for some cookies, and I met up with her to pick them up, and she had shared with me that Bill has dementia and that the family's really struggling with this. And so she had said to me, Kim, would you ever be interested to mentor me in a book? And I'd love to call it Losing Coach Mac. And I said, of course, but I said, how about a film? You know, this is something that we could work on together. And it took her quite a while. It took almost 2 years for her to come to the idea that, yes, I can do this, because she has been so overwhelmed. So that's how the story came to be. And as it unraveled, we started reaching out to people in the community that Bill has touched, because he was a football player, he was a coach, he was a teacher and a principal, and he started many football programs. He became, earned the title Father of Abbotsford Football, because he changed football in this community. He's just inspired so many people. So when people started reaching out with their stories, it was actually overwhelming, because there was so much love for him, and how today, as grown men, he's impacted their lives when he coached them back in the 80s. And so we were going along, and we were letting the story unfold in that regard. And then Pam and the family, I could see a lot of fractured relationships within their family, because with CTE and dementia, now CTE is called chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It is something you're hearing a lot about in the news these days. There's been a lot of suicides and things like that, because people are self-soothing, and CTE always leads to dementia. Well, they did not know with Bill how these fractured relationships began, was because the symptoms of CTE begin in midlife, and it's very distinct changes: anger, aggression, anxiety, depression. A lot of self-soothing starts to take place, because they themselves don't know what's going on. So in Bill's family, you see in the film, he has 2 lovely older daughters who talk about their journey with their dad, and he lost his first wife to MS, sorry. And so she she passed away. So he's had a very difficult, challenging life. And then he met Pam, and then they had their family with the 2 children. So the thing is when the 2 younger children came along, Bill was in these early signs of CTE. And so the children had a father who was, for lack of a better word, broken when they were born to him. And so no one knew what was going on. He went into seclusion. He had a son, Lockhart, or has a son, Lockhart, who is an athlete just like his dad. He had the opportunity to go back and coach Lockhart, and he couldn't do any of those things that he had once done so well and with such help to others. And so it was just really interesting to see. What I felt with the film was I could see these broken relationships that were happening in the family, these fractures. And I thought, let's just take all the pieces of this story and lay them out on the table. And let's try to put it up on the screen so it makes sense, so that the family can see, that these younger children can see that it wasn't that dad didn't love them during those years. It was that, no one knew what was going on. And so that's the sadness within this when there isn't this early diagnosis. And it's just a really beautiful, touching film.
Now, CTE is from brain trauma, right? If you get hit in the head or whatever from football or hockey, whatever, that's how CTE starts, right?
And domestic violence as well. There's a lot of cases for that. We recently heard that for every NHL player that is diagnosed with a concussion, there are 5,500 women that have been suffering with CTE because of violence in the home. So it's very prevalent. Yeah.
Well, I know dementia is really rough. Dad, you could speak into this probably more than me because my mother had dementia, and it was heartbreaking. I think for me, before she, when it was her funeral, I was okay, and people were coming up to me going, are you all right? And I said, I'm fine. Because for me, I grieved 6 years earlier, when I realized when I was having a conversation with my mom and she wasn't there. My mom was gone. And that's really what broke my heart. And that's when I grieved. And then over the last 6 years, or however many years it was, you just saw her, deteriorate and pass away. It's a really traumatic experience for people. And I know in this world, we're experiencing more and more of dementia cases happening. Alan, you can go ahead and speak into this a little bit. It's difficult to see someone you love just fade away.
Yeah, it is. I think, I decided a long time ago that whatever was happening to my wife, I was going to be her caregiver. And I remember the day that the doctor said that from this day on, she's going to have 24-hour care. And he said, well, let me give you a list of facilities that you can get your name in because they're always full, and you can, then place her in a place. And I said, no, doctor, I don't need that. And he goes, oh, so you already have a place? And I said, no, I'm going to look after my wife at home. And of course, he looked at my wife and said, my, aren't you blessed? And he said, I seldom, if ever, have heard that. And then he looked at me and he said, do you know anything about dementia? And I said, not a thing. And he said, well, you better take this list anyway, just in case. And I said, no, doctor, I will not take it. I said, I don't care how bad it gets. I'm going to look after my wife. And I did. And, God gave me some, obviously, people that helped me through those years. And, I believe that the scripture teaches that we as a family are to take care of family, and we're not to brush it off on government or other organizations. And so I still might not know much of the, scientific perspective of dementia, but I know how it affects people. And I can tell you this much, in my humble opinion, keeping them in the home, keeping them on a regular schedule, having the same people look after them over those periods of years is more peaceful and loving for them than putting them in an institution where they get different caregivers even during the day from different shifts, different people from different backgrounds, different languages, different countries.
Yep.
And to me, it compounds the problem of what happens when people are going through that.
Yeah, I agree. And in losing Coach Mac, you see Pam is Bill's primary caregiver, and it really does address the topic of caregiver burnout because she is burning the candle at both ends, as you would well know. But it's about, you know, a lot of people after they saw the premiere of Losing Coach Mac, the MacGregor started getting a lot more phone calls from people to say, you know, hey, can I come over and stop by for coffee? You know, I could sit and read with Bill or do whatever, because people don't know how to react. They don't know how to help. And a caregiver doesn't necessarily know what to ask of others, if they even do, because they themselves don't know what they need when they have so much going on and that's on their shoulders. So I agree, Alan, that's a best case scenario for the person going through dementia and also for the family to be able to step forward and give that extra time. And, you know, I said to the children when I had conversations with them for filming, I said, I truly believe that God places us in situations in life. It's for us to grow and to learn and to help other people. And I said, you know that your dad would never have wanted you to be feeling badly because that's not who Bill was at all. I said, but he can't remember now anything that's happened. So now it's like you have to rise up because this is the place that you've been placed upon in and the situation. And you have to offer your dad grace and help his story to move forward and continue to help other people. And so that was sort of the perspective I came to during the filming, is that, you know, each person's called to do something, and that's what falls upon the children now.
Yeah. Did you have a difficult time filming this? Like, was he coming in and out? I mean, where was he in his progress when you were doing the filming? Was it difficult for you on some days, I'm sure?
Well, it's interesting because when we went to film, so in the trailer, you see the film with him in the blue shirt sitting there. And that was the very first conversation we had with Bill in his home office. And little did we know that that interview would be the one that's weaved through the entire film. We have other scenarios and conversations with him, but that's where he was most stable. And he was able to tell us, I have something going on in my brain, and it cuts in and out. So he knew that. And as we went along, we found out some of the information that he gave us, you know, reflections weren't always accurate, but it's where he was at that time. But when you watch the film, you will see over the course of the 10 months that we filmed, significant decline. And that's very heartbreaking for the people that love him to watch and the people in the community that admire him. So it was difficult. It was interesting because the first few, we went through all different scenarios in his life. We went back to when he was a child, and then at SFU when he played and was in his prime. And we had all his teammates. And then we went to his first teaching job at Templeton, which put him in the educators pool, and to the teams that he coached. So it was really interesting to see. And what is, maybe Alan saw this with your mom and his wife, is that Bill could remember all the details from all the things way back, but he couldn't remember what his own children were doing today. And so that was kind of mind-boggling to me, but you come to understand that that's how dementia works. And at the beginning, when we would go back to film again, we'd had such a fantastic time. And the family even cried at times, saying, this is so amazing to see such joy in Dad's eyes again, you know, connecting with all these people. And then we would see him again, and he did not remember. Like, he loves Rick Hansen. We went to Rick Hansen, the Man in Motion, and because Bill was the principal that opened the Rick Hansen Secondary School. And he was so excited. And I remember we were in his office getting some archive photos, And Bill said, I hold up a picture and there was Rick. He says, "Oh, do you know him too?" And I said, "Yes." And we talked with him and he says, "Oh," and then I said, "And you were there too." And we had this great conversation. So it was really interesting to watch how the brain works. But in moments of clarity, when we would be sitting, he would look and he would say, "Thank you for doing this. And I really hope it helps someone else." And I think that is what he truly feels in his heart. He knows he's given so much to so many. And I know that he really knows that he will continue giving long after, you know.
How long has the film been out?
We premiered it in September on home turf here in Abbotsford because that's where the bulk of his teaching and everything was done. And we've had a number of screenings since, and everywhere it goes, it's so well received, not because of the work we did. We're just, you know, the bearers of the story. It's just because he has such inspiring messages in there, and people never knew that he covered it very well for a very long time, but people did not know the plight that he is suffering, and it's very heart-wrenching to see that. But
Has
he
he
brings hope
passed?
because no, he's still alive. He just turned 75 in March. He's definitely aged quite a bit. We just had a screening in Victoria last weekend, and you know, he was there. And when the film was over, I said, "Bill," you know, the family came out because they have family in Victoria. I said, "What did you think seeing yourself on the big screen?" He said, "Was I there?" You know, so he can't. And then I said, "Yeah, you and Pam and all the kids." And he's like, "Oh," but he looks good, and he's still got a sense of humor, but his memory's just not there. He's not. The wires are so crisscrossed now. So yeah, that's very sad.
Yeah. You know, you're going on tour at this, right? Or groups can join in and host the film. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we would like to reach out, you know, put it out there that any organizations, groups, it's not a film just for people with brain injury or dementia. It's actually very well received by those that may be working with youth as coaches, and then also anyone who's an educator, you know, just how the magic that Bill has had with people and bringing out the best in them. And so, yeah, we're reaching out. If anybody would like to see a screening in their community, reach out to us at losingcoachmac.com and, you know, let us know. And we like to do a screening and a Q&A. And that's the route we're going with the film right now, is with the different brain injury associations and schools and things like that to share the story.
How's the response been from the screenings you've been doing?
Amazing. I just can't even put into words how well received it is. And again, it's not because of anything I've done. It's because Bill just has a way, like he's always shared with us and through his history, is that we're each born with giftings, and that's what he helps other people to discover theirs and to shine light with them. And I just think you just feel so inspired watching him. And an interesting thing is, in the work we do, you know, our first film was selfless.
Yep.
And as we've gone along, it seems that the selfless theme has come through each story that we've done. And Bill's no exception to that. He has taught us all about how we would just all do better by thinking more of others. When I asked him, "Did you like being a coach or a player better?" He said, "Well, I did some pretty awesome things on the field," but he said, "That was just me." He said, "I think coaching, because then I could help other people." And yeah, it just touches you and inspires you. Yeah.
Yeah, we got like 60 seconds. What is the, and by the way, this, you're doing the tour now. That's probably going to go till fall, and this will be available publicly in the fall, right?
Yeah, and if anybody goes to our website, losingcoachmac.com, and signs up for our newsletter, it will come directly to their inbox where they can find the film.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to get in, what's the next one you're working on?
Beautiful, Full, and it's a film for women. And it's really one that we're going to go through different cultures around the world and have conversations with women. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But we're also working on a sequel to Selfless, because as people fall deeper into the metaverse, narcissism, anxiety, and all those things are really plaguing young people. So we're hard at work with those.
Well, God bless you for taking on these stories. I think they're so important to document these stories and to share them with others because, you know, like you said, whether you're a coach or a player, or whether you have someone in your household or you know that is suffering through, you know, CTE or dementia or whatever, this story needs to get out there. It's going to touch lives and everything else you're doing. I just love the mandate that your company has. Really, you're pulling out these amazing stories that everyone struggles with. You know what I mean? The struggles are real. You're not alone. And I love the message that you have on your films. Thank you so much for being here. We're definitely going to have you back.
And thank you so much for having me. And you won't be disappointed. Losing Coach Mac is a beautiful story, and God's hands are all over that. And we're very blessed to have Bill MacGregor in the world. And I think there's a lot of other Bill MacGregors out there, and this helps people to just understand all around the help that some people need in their lives.
Well, Losing Coach Mac, I encourage everyone to go to the website, losingcoachmac.com. Check it out. Fascinating stuff, Dad. Personal experience with us too, right? With dementia. It was, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's different
terrible
forms of dementia. I mean, people handle it differently. Your mother, from the time that she was diagnosed and the doctor said we had to give her 24-hour care, she basically lasted 4 years, not quite 4 years after that. So and everybody's different.
I was angry. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with everybody. I was angry. I was angry with God. There was a moment in time God and I had it out, because I'm like, why Mom? I mean, she's like the sweetest, most helpful, you know, make me a cherry pie for my birthday kind of mom. I mean, like, and for her to go that way, just, ooh. But the Lord heals us through that. He talks to us and he takes care of us and he showers us with love and walks us through.
Well, that's right. She was such a great lady that I was honored to be able to take care of her until Jesus took her.
If you want to help support our mission, keep this conversation and truth on the air, we are viewer supported. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on the donate button. There are many different ways you could give digitally. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You can make a check payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. All your donations and your gifts are tax deductible. If you'd like to call our prayer line and ask for prayer, or you could donate that way as well, you can. It's toll free, 1-800-915-0056 in Canada. And if you're in the U.S., you can call 1-800-445-3450. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.